Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. Welcome to Carrie's Connoisseurs, and today in my studio I have a well-loved, very well-loved old friend in the form of Charles Beck with me. In 1995, I think it was, Charles Beck took over Fairview from his father, who was an equal legend. The rest is pretty much history. But I'm speaking to him today about two things that I need you all to know about. The one is that I chaired, well, first of all, hello, Charles, welcome.
Hello, Carrie, nice to see you again and speak to you.
And you. So, a couple of weeks ago, I chaired a panel where we were tasting Malbecs made in South Africa, and the Fairview 2021 Malbec won. Charles is so humble that he didn't even know that it had won, but it has won, and it's unbelievably good value for money. We'll talk about that in a minute, but he told me there was a proviso that if he spoke to me about his Malbec, he also wanted to tell me another story, which I think you're all going to find completely fascinating. So Charles, firstly, the Malbec, you really are, I think, the pioneer of strange and wonderful grapes in South Africa. Why?
I think that we were caught up in apartheid years, and we were denied access to the international market, and we were stuck basically with about 6 major varieties, Cab, Shiraz, Chenin Blanc, and then later Chardonnay arrived, and later Sauvignon Blanc arrived. But so we didn't really have the opportunity to test everything that should or could grow well in South Africa. And when I went into the business, I immediately realized that the varieties that we have are not necessarily all suited to our climatic conditions. One, I can say definitely Chenin Blanc and Pinotage, 100%. Cabernet, in isolated pockets, does exceptionally well, as does Sauvignon Blanc. But I was looking for something that had better general adaptability to our condition, and I have tried this about everything that I could lay my hands on, and I have enough land to plant these things and do experiments and be brave and sometimes
so
reckless.
Where do you get all those vines from? Did you import them, or how did you find them?
Well, I didn't smuggle them in suitcases as happened in the past.
Rubbish, I bet you did some.
No, I'm squeaky clean as far as that's concerned. I worked with our local
Nothing
authorities.
in your mattress?
No, nothing. Not even a sleeping bag.
No money in the mattress, nothing like that?
No, nothing. I got no money in my furniture either. So I got them in through legal ways. We were working together with Nitverby, the institute, and South Africa's got an amazing library of clonal material, and it's just to put pressure on the system to get them to propagate. So you create a demand for something and ask them, and then invariably they have assisted us in getting material. I brought like Viognier, for instance, Tempranillo, Carignan, Grenache. We've worked on a lot of those varieties to get them into South Africa. And at the moment I'm working on Grenache Gris, trying to get that. That is
delicious.
It is at Nitverby in the garden, and we just need to propagate it and get that multiplied and get it out into the industry.
So where are the bulk of your vines now? Are they in Paarl, where at Fairview? Because you've got Spice Route. I mean, everybody's dancing and sis-bombarding about the Swartland. You've been in the Swartland forever, haven't you? You are Mr. Swartland.
I've got around Fairview. I have 1,000 hectares of land, the immediate precinct, and I've slowly planned to remove the vineyards from the valley floor and moved it up to the mountainside, and this is actually quite a good location. It's southern slope and a nice cooling breeze in the evening, so it works reasonably well. I've got some land in Stellenbosch for Bordeaux varieties. Then I've got in the Swartland a farm called Klein Almoskale, which is 400 hectares. And then the very exciting area is Darling. I have about 120 hectares of vineyard in Darling.
That's amazing. And do you just sort of hover around, and when something comes up that takes your fancy, you go and put in an offer for it? Or how do you do it? Was it always yours?
No,
it
no,
your
I
father's?
acquired the land over time. And the reason why I went to the Swartland initially was because land was very cheap there. And I happened to,
Yes.
and I happened to taste a very good Sauvignon Blanc in the Swartland co-op. And you know, Sauvignon Blanc is one of those varieties that is very sensitive to heat. And I thought that if this farm can produce a Sauvignon Blanc of that quality and distinction, imagine what they can do with Rhone varieties. And I pursued that farm and I bought it a couple of days later. And that was the start of the spice it. And I think the start of the sort of what they now call the Swartland revolution. And that was way back in 98.
Yes, I remember. You know, I was just saying to somebody the other day, I don't know if you recall, but when I was at university, you could buy in a 5-liter box, you could buy Swartland's co-op Shiraz. And I think that it was like 12 Rand for 5 liters. And it was absolutely bloody delicious. Yeah. That's what we lived on. Everybody said they drank tussies at Varsity. I lived on that stuff that came out of the Swartland co-op boxes.
Do you know the co-op? Everybody says like we discovered the Swartland. That's not true. The Swartland has been making wine for many, many years.
Yeah.
I think since the 1940s that co-op started there, even before that. And they were the excellent co-op that made excellent wine. And then of course there was Alles Verloren. That was also there for many, many years. So it's not that it was all of a sudden discovered by us.
And what's happened to that cooperative? Is it still there?
It is still there. It's going the way of a lot of cooperatives do. A lot of the good grapes have been pilfered out of the area by other growers to enhance the quality of grapes from other areas and names unmentioned. And those co-op then the co-op then runs dry of good quality, and it becomes very economically not that viable.
Yes. So Celia Gilloway, as we know, she's the darling of the wine industry. She has put together almost every single competition in the wine industry in South Africa for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And she started a little venture of her own, I think 3 years ago, called Events By Celia. And I support her as much as I can, because what she tries to do is to give a little platform to strange or unusual grape varieties and new producers or producers, but with an emphasis on new producers who can't necessarily afford to enter all these other big fancy flashy competitions, which, as you know, can cost you money. Then you've got to send a case of wine, then you've got to have a certain amount of cases available for sale, and so it can be quite a sort of an onerous thing. So Celia has put these competitions together, which myself and a couple of the other judges in South Africa support actively. And I was asked, as I said, to go and chair the Malbec panel a few weeks ago. We do it all completely blind. It's audited by KPMG or somebody reputable. And the winner was Fairview Malbec 2021. And it was honestly, Malbec's quite a tricky grape to drink on its own. We're not Argentina. We're not Chile. We're South Africa. But clearly the grape loves whatever soil you're putting it into, because it's deep and it's inky sort of blue-black and it's quite robust. And you can definitely have it with a great big T-bone steak on a braai. It's very well suited to the South African palate. I think it was delicious wine, Charles.
Thank you. You know that if you take the Bordeaux family of red wines, I think that Malbec is the best suited to South African condition. A couple of reasons. For slightly bigger berries, so it's a bit more heat resistant. And if you look at where it performs well as a single variety around the world, it's in warmer areas. And that's what prompted me to experiment with it and eventually plant it.
Well, congratulations. Anybody who doesn't go and buy a case of that for Christmas is crazy, because it's well priced and it's absolutely delicious. And I'm going to have a case for all my braais and things this Christmas. Let's move on to what happened while I was sleeping. You rushed off to Georgia and went all Russian on the crowds, and you're making wine in qvevri. How do I say the word? They're big clay pots.
Qvevri, Qvevri. Qvevri, okay.
Tell us about that new adventure.
I mean, it's quite obvious. You can see I've been in the wine business for 44 years, and I realized in all my winemaking travels and winemaking experiments and planting new vineyards, I realized there's something I'm missing, something I haven't discovered yet, and that eventually led me to Georgia, former part of Russia. And I went on an experimental tour and trip and tasting, and I discovered the most amazing wines, a whole lot of rubbish as well, but some fantastic wine that
they've got very strange grape varieties there, hey?
They got 525 indigenous grape varieties.
Good Lord, okay.
It's unbelievable. We've got, at the best one, Pinotage is not hardly indigenous, but it was developed. Yeah. They got 525 of their own. It's just amazing opportunity to go and visit there. And then I discovered that they make what they call natural wine, which eventually is white wine that turns orange. So it's called orange wine. It's not made from oranges, from grapes that turn the color of an orange. And I went to go and see how they make it. And what they basically do, they harvest grapes. They tip it into a clay pot that's buried in the ground, that's built in a specific fashion with a distinctive shape. And they just leave it in there fermenting on the skins for 6 months. And then they get the local minister to come and make a prayer before opening the pot. And I tell you what, you need to pray quite a lot to get good wine out of that pot after lying under it.
Yeah, I know. But now tell me, I've seen those pots in the ground.
Yeah.
Do they just dig a hole that's big enough for the pot? Or do they put cement around the pot? Or is it literally planting the pot?
That's what you must put in the right soil. You put it in clay soil. When it gets wet in the winter, the clay around the pot expands and crushes the pot. So you must be very careful where you can do it. And I imported, it was a long story, I'm not going to bore you with all the details now, but I met the last remaining guy that makes clay pots in Georgia, in the high mountainous region where the clay is right, and the whole story. And I bought a container of those pots. And
they were
so there were 10 pots and they were 1,000 liters each. And the next year I bought another container of 1,200 liter pots. And we now make wine from organically grown grapes in the Swartland on the farm called Klein Almoskale. And we just launched a range of natural wines made in clay pots.
So what are you making in there? Before we go there, tell me now, that pot has got a big opening at the top. How do you close that pot
It's
off?
not that big. I actually sent my winemaker from Klein Almoskale to go make wine in Georgia. And the reason why I sent him, he was small enough to fit through the clay pot, the aperture. So you have to be a winemaker in Georgia, you can't be South African.
You're very tiny.
The front row, you won't manage it. You might get in, but you'll never get out of the pot. Anyway,
So talk to me about this pot. So you put it in the ground.
Yeah.
And do you ferment the wine and age it and everything, or it
everything?
stays on its skins?
So what we've done, the aperture is only about 750 millimeters. So it's quite a job to get in there, all right?
Yeah.
But we just tip the grapes in with their stalks and all, okay? And we just leave it there and allow it to spontaneously start fermenting without any addition of any chemical whatsoever, no sulfur.
And there's no crushing or anything. Is it all like carbonic maceration?
So mostly carbonic maceration. Sometimes we do a mixture of both techniques, having whole grapes at the bottom and destalked grapes on the top. So we played around with different combinations. And it's just amazing. And then after fermentation, we seal the pot with a plate glass lid with a special wax so that we seal it onto it. And we just leave it like that.
And how long do you leave it in the pot for? Like
anything from 3 to 9 months, depending on what we're wanting to do.
And white and red?
We do white and red. And you know what? We've also just done a rosé, which was quite easy to do. We took 95% Grenache Blanc and 5% Grenache Noir and co-fermented in the pot. And we came up with this amazing rosé.
Is it delicious?
It's
and
amazing.
And then you don't put any sulfur in to stop any fermentation process or anything. So it's pure natural wine.
It's natural wine. And you know, what I learned in Georgia, the extended skin contact extracts a lot of polyphenols or tannins out of the pips and the stalks. And
Yeah.
the Georgians view the polyphenols, which are antioxidants, as sufficient or suffice to protect the wine against oxidation. And that's 100% the fact. So they say the grape gives you everything. Why must you go mess around and add chemicals to it?
It's true. Now, there's been a lot of talk in London circles around this orange wine, which I have probably mistakenly thought of as fraught, oxidative, horrible, stinky wine. Clearly not. Is that exactly what it is? Same stuff.
I think what we've managed to do, because we drive a technology in our cellars the whole time, and our winemakers are very technologically adept. And so what we've done is take high technology and hygiene and combine it with the old-fashioned biblical way of making wine. And I think we've come up with a better product than what the Georgians have.
Really? So what are you making in these clay pots now? Tell us, so that we can all rush out and buy some. Have you released it into the market?
You can't buy it. You'll have to get hold of me to get some. We don't sell it anywhere other than people that phone us for it. So it's sort of on demand. The white wine is a blend of different varieties, including Sauvignon, Chêne, and Grenache Blanc, and another variety not known in South Africa, Petit Manseng. And the reason why I planted Petit Manseng for natural wine, it's extremely high in acidity. So you use a component of that in the blend, so you don't have to acidify the grape. So it's completely natural. Red wine, mainly Shiraz Grenache Noir, and then the rosé blend of the two.
And Charles, the wine is not all flabby and sort of all over the place like it can. Doesn't undergo too much sort of malolactic or anything.
Now, I'm going to send you some bottles and you're going to be blown away. And it's all food wine. And Georgian culture of enjoying wine is amazing. They're very similar to South Africans. They love rugby and they love braaiing and they like drinking. So they're a cool bunch of people.
What's not to like? I know. Well, we should move them. Have they got light and water?
They're an amazing bunch of people, and I've actually got good ties with them now, and I look forward to visiting this in the future.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I've got some cousins who live in South Africa. They have a hotel in Madagascar as well.
Yeah.
But they went over on a holiday to Georgia specifically to go and taste the wines of Georgia. And they came back and he could not speak highly enough of it. He absolutely loved it. He said everybody should put it onto their bucket list because it's such a fun place to be.
No, it really is.
So how many different wines have you got? You've got a red, a white, and a rosé.
I've got a red, white, and a rosé, and one very orange wine. My red, white, and rosé are, I would say, more mainstream, although made in qvevri in a natural way. And then just to show we can do the orange more orange than Georgia, I made 100% a extended skin contact white wine in very limited quantities in a very
And what grape did you use?
I used Grenache Blanc on that one, 100%.
And Charles, how do you get the wine out of the egg?
With extreme difficulty. You put a suction pipe into the thing with a strainer.
You siphon it out.
You suck it out with a pump, and then ultimately you have to climb into that clay pot to clean it. And it has to be scrubbed with cherry bark to sterilize.
I was going to ask you, what do you clean it with, and how often can you use that same clay pot? Because I think they used to rub them with beeswax, didn't they?
You're 100% right. After it comes out of the kiln where it's fired, they take a big mop and they mop the inside with beeswax. So that's 100% correct. And the best way of keeping these qvevri is keeping them full of good wine. And
how often can you use it? Just forever and ever and ever?
Forever and ever. There's some qvevri in Georgia that are in the ground for thousands of years. They've been making wine for 8,000 years in Georgia.
I believe so. I believe so. It's absolutely alarming. And dare I ask about, you probably the smartest businessman in the wine industry. What's the money implications of this? Is it more or less expensive to make wine in qvevri?
No, just a correction on that. If I was the smartest guy in the wine business, I wouldn't be in the wine business.
Maybe Solly's the smartest man in the wine business.
No, Solly's in the right end of
winemaker.
I'm not in the wine business. I'm in the pleasure of enjoying making and growing grapes and making wine. I don't see it as a business. I see it as a passion, and the reward is just the enjoyment I get out of doing things like the Malbec and the clay pot wine. The financial implications of the clay pots, I'm never going to make any return in my lifetime. Okay, that I can promise you out of those clay pots.
That's what I suspected. I didn't want to upset everybody, but I thought.
No, to get them here and the trouble that we went through and the mistakes we made and all that, you're never going to see the money back. But it's going to create a new category of wine. And I think South Africa is ideally suited to producing this. And all the trendy wine bars around the world today are serving orange wines and natural wines. And it's in touch what the consumer requires in the future, completely natural, done authentically, done with integrity, and an honest product that can enhance any occasion.
Well, maybe we can sell it as the antidote for stupidity, because I think the human race is going backwards at such a rate of knots. So maybe if we tell everybody that they drink the perfectly natural wine, because you farm organically as well, don't you?
That's organically certified as well. And that's what is the beauty about the Swartland. I think we're going to hit the next frontier where those old bush vines that are there are so in sync with the environment and require so little human intervention. It's very easy to convert them. It takes you 3 years of conversion, but to convert it to organically grown grapes.
Oh, really?
The area is ideal for that. And I think the consumer in the future is going to be more concerned about the environmental factors as we suffer with global warming now. So I think the Swartland can lead the way in organic wine in the future.
It sounds brilliant. I must speak to you about something else, because someone came to see me the other day about an unbelievable thing that I need clever people like you to help me with. It is a byproduct of garnet mining. And it is the most unbelievable fertilizer for farming soil. But we'll keep that for another day.
Okay, that's great.
Charles, your journey in the South African wine industry it's been so inspirational to me. I remember when I came back from England, I went to work with Solly, and you were probably one of the first wine farmers that I met, because you and Solomon were friends. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, this person's energy is just infectious and contagious. And I've just watched you for 35 years.
44, unfortunately.
You're just an absolute star. Thank you for everything you do for our industry. I don't know if anybody knows how big your contribution has been, but I'll tell them. It's been absolutely massive. So congratulations on the Malbec. And thank you for telling. I can't wait to taste that qvevri stuff. Okay. I'm going to tell everybody about it, and they have to phone you direct on the farm for it, hey?
Yeah. You can, anybody that's interested in the qvevri wine, you can get hold of me, charles@fairview.co.za. And then
You're such a mensch. Thank you, my Charlie.
Okay.
Lots and lots of love. Are you going away for the holidays?
No, what's that?
You're not allowed to do Christmas anyway, you Jewish. That's my holiday.
But I celebrate with everybody.
Good. Well, when you come to Johannesburg,
any opportunity to share a glass of wine with friends, I'm there.
Come. Put some bottles into a bag and come to Johannesburg and celebrate with me.
I'd love to do that. But I'll send the bottles in advance. I can't promise I'll be there yet. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll wait for you. You're more important than the bottles. Thank you very, very much, my darling.
Pleasure.
Lots of love. Thanks for the interview.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.